Welcome to the show. I'm Jason Whitlock, and I'll tell you why, even without Carson Wentz, the Eagles are still Super Bowl contenders.
And I'm Colin Cowherd, and I'll tell you why Aaron Rodgers can't save the Packers season. Speak for yourself starts now on a Monday. That was a great, that Rams-Eagles game was like the highest rated game since like week one. Everybody watched that thing.
Terrific game. Wrong team won. Hello and welcome. We're joined today by Fox NFL analyst Michael Vick and Tony Gonzalez. Let's start right here in Los Angeles, where the Eagles won the battle against the Rams yesterday, but might have lost the war with Carson Wentz season over after the quarterback tore his ACL diving into the end zone late in the third quarter. Today, Doug Peterson addressed that the Eagles can overcome losing this year's leading MVP candidate.
We overcame a Pro Bowl left tackle. We overcame our middle linebacker. We've overcome a running back. We've overcome a core special teams player this year, our kicker this year. This is no different.
Cowherd, they lose the quarterback. Do you still see the Eagles as a Super Bowl threat?
I don't. I'm not sure Doug Peterson is a great coach. Now I got Nick Foles at quarterback. The NFC is loaded. I think the coaching and the quarterback play in the NFC is so much more consistent and so much upper tier compared to the AFC. I just think it's really rough. I think the NFC, you've got your Pete Carrolls and your Russell Wilson coming to town. Now it's Aaron Rodgers and McCarthy. I consider them both A's. I think Sean McVay is an A coach. I think you could make.
You know who won that game yesterday, right?
Well,
Doug Peterson.
90% of the work was done. I mean, Carson Wentz saved the day.
Nick Foles threw a terrific pass on third down.
One pass.
Again.
Was it only one pass?
Well, one great
He played
pass.
the fourth quarter. He played the fourth quarter. The Eagles are a complete team.
They're very good.
Offensively and defensively. And again, it's like, to me, what Doug Peterson said, they lost Jason Peters, a guy a lot of people consider the best left tackle, and they kept it rolling. If I'm the Eagles, I certainly, and look, screw the Eagles, I don't see them out of the Super Bowl hunt. I think they're still in it.
I will say it's going to be tough. It's not going to be easy. The things that Carson Wentz can do, it can't actually be duplicated. I mean, look, I love Nick Foles to death, and I think he's one of the luckiest guys alive, and it's sad what happened to Carson Wentz yesterday, but in 2003, he stepped in for me. He went in and threw 27 touchdowns to 2 interceptions, and then now he has an opportunity with a good defense and some weapons around him to do the same thing, but compete with a defense to win the Super Bowl. I think he has to wake up every morning and know, listen, it's a great opportunity out there for you, and be optimistic about it like Doug Peterson is.
NFC's
2013 season.
Yeah, NFC better today than it's been in a decade. I mean, this is the best the NFC's been in a decade.
Yeah, do I think they're going to win the Super Bowl? I think their chances. Doug Peterson's he's saying what he has to say, and that's what you want to hear. If I'm sitting on that team, I want my head coach to say that. The fans want him to say that. The ownership wants him to say that. But he knows what's going on. Come on. I mean, if Carson Wentz is the potential MVP is off your team just got worse. That's all there is to it. Your chances of going to the Super Bowl have plummeted. But I do agree with you because of what Nick Foles has done. He's got experience. It's a great backup quarterback to have. You have to trust the people around him. I think Bucky Brooks always talks about the tractor trailer or whatever the analogy gives.
Some quarterbacks pull, some get pulled.
Some quarterbacks pull. Most quarterbacks get pulled. Most of them. The elite quarterbacks can pull you. I think player-wise, too. That's why you see some teams, some players go to a different team. They're never as good as they were with that team that they just came from because the coaching's different, the system's different. The guys that can make that transition are truly elite players. Those are their elite guys. I don't know if Nick Foles has a good enough roster where he still can win some games.
Listen, we've seen Wentz on the same field last couple of weeks as Dak, was a mismatch, and Goff. I like Goff. Wentz is different. I'll give you a stat. He saves this team's butt a lot. Look at the 3rd and long stat on the Philadelphia Eagles, and look at the teams around them. Those are mostly bad teams. These are the teams that have had the most 3rd and longs. Yeah, that's Wentz making plays out of nothing. He's run, going into yesterday's game, he's run for 27 first downs. Jared Goff, 2. You're talking about a guy, and when you watch that game yesterday, it's not that Wentz is just good.
No. I think you're misunderstanding that stat. That's bad first and second down play. They're right in with mediocre teams
what I'm saying.
that aren't good on
That's
first
what I'm
and
saying.
second down.
Doug Peterson. Wentz saves their butt. They're 3rd and long. Nick Foles isn't turning those 3rd and 11s into first downs.
They might be more high risk with Carson Wentz and dial it back on 1st and 2nd down. I look at that and see a team that's probably trying to air it out a little bit on 1st down instead of going with a Ajayi or LeGarrette Blount. And the running game, again, there's ways to skin the cat. Here's where I think Nick Foles is lucky. They've pretty much wrapped up the NFC East.
Yes.
He doesn't have to be great for very long. This injury didn't happen in week 4 when you get exposed over the next 12, 13 weeks. They wrapped up their division. And they'll probably get home field advantage with this key win they just got this past weekend. So he needs to catch a 2 or 3 game hot streak in the playoffs, and you got a shot. I think he could do it.
Don't tell me this ain't a weird year going on right now throughout the whole NFL. Case Keenum, come on. If Case Keenum can do it, Nick Foles can do it.
And Case Keenum and Nick Foles are boys. They click tight, so he might call him and get some tips or pointers from him. He gonna need it.
The Eagles confirmed today, bad news, Carson Wentz will miss the rest of the year, torn ACL. Awful. MVP favorite, just the latest in a long line of injuries to star players this year. Odell Beckham, Aaron Rodgers, J.J. Watt. The Texan star showed his support for the Eagles quarterback today, tweeting, quote, "These injuries out of control this season. Feeling for you, Carson. Wishing you all the best, brother." Whitlock, you impressed with how the NFL has overcome big-name injuries?
You know, the NFL, as Colin Kaepernick is learning this year, they don't need anybody. The train's going to keep rolling. You know, football coaches always say the train's leaving with or without you. You need to be here on time. And that's the NFL motto. We're bigger than any individual stars. This season has been a test of that, though. I mean, to see Carson Wentz go down when he's going to be the MVP, to see Aaron Rodgers, the most exciting player in the NFL, we've lost him for most of the season. J.J. Watt, we've lost him for all this season. It has been tough, and I would say to some degree it has diminished this season. But the NFL, football is a great game. It will survive.
Well, the NFL does a good job. It elevates its stars more quickly than other leagues. Even in the NBA, if you're a really good player for, let's say, 3 years, Andrew Wiggins, he still could walk through a mall and 90% of sports fans don't know who he is. Literally, Romo hurt, Dak in, 2 weeks later, he's a household name. I mean, literally in 2 weeks, Dak Prescott for Romo. The NFL has that power.
Football has that power, though.
Yeah.
Because college football makes a lot of these guys stars before they ever get to the NFL.
Reggie Bush, Vince Young, Tebow Manziel. So, I mean, I think the other thing is the NFL's the #1 TV show on 5 networks. The media always tells you how popular the NBA is. The regular season ratings are like a 1. The NFL gets 11s and 12s for regular season games. So I just think it's a hugely popular TV show, and if you play quarterback, you're a star. I mean, Carson Wentz was a star by October last year. Yeah. He was a go-to star.
Yeah, if you watch the league, man, you watch guys go down, and instantly you see another guy step up, and instantaneously you can see another superstar in the making. That's what people want to see. That's where the viewership comes from. So, you know, when guys go down, whether it's from overtraining or doing too much in the offseason or just freak injuries, you know, it's always going to be a place for another guy to step in and become the next face of the NFL. They're always looking for new faces. I remember when I went out, I was like, the ratings are going to go down. It's not going to be as exciting. You know, I'm sitting back watching. I'm like, the game hasn't changed, and they look like they're having just as much fun without me. I need to get back out there. So, you know, the NFL will always be one of the biggest sports. It'll always be one of the biggest platforms for football. And, you know, I'm just glad I had the chance to play it.
That's funny. you thought I was going to stop without you a little bit?
Yeah.
Man, I can't believe they still have tight ends after I left the game. That's amazing. I think Peyton Manning, Joe Montana, I mean, this happens. The guys
When I was in my prime, but that's what I'm saying.
I remember the Michael Vick experience. That was sweet. No, but I agree with all you guys. I mean, we have a hotbed of talent here in America because we are the collective country for the world. I mean, everybody from over there, they come to America. We're the melting pot. So you get all these great athletes, and yeah, these guys go down, and it's sad for the NFL. I think I talked about earlier that if you put together this team this year that has been hurt, if they were a collective team, it'd be the best team in NFL history by far. I mean, Aaron Rodgers is the starting quarterback with Carson Wentz backing him up now. It's amazing, but still. There are guys that are going to step up. They're waiting for their opportunity. These guys are trained professionals, and the NFL does a good job of putting them out there.
The reason the NFL got dinged by the protests, as you pointed out, was because the NFL's always had a relationship with the American military. It's part of their brand. The upside to the brand of the NFL, the shield's been bigger than a player. So when you do lose various players, it doesn't ding the league to the same level. If you just took LeBron and Steph out, I mean, those NBA playoffs last year, until the finals, were a dud. They were all sweeps. So when you build this big shield with a connection to the American military, it can withstand a lot. Now, the downside is if you have an anthem protest, it hurts you more than it would any other league. The Steelers beat the Ravens. Great game last night. Rallied from 11 down in the fourth quarter to get their 8th straight win and clinch the AFC North. Big Ben set an NFL record with the third 500-yard game of his career, notching more than 200 of them on 11 catches from Antonio Brown, who was just spectacular. Unstoppable this year, leading the NFL in catches, receiving yards, receiving first downs, 25-plus yard receptions. Also second in TDs. Whitlock, who's more important to the Steelers right now, Big Ben or the great Antonio Brown?
Look, again, John Elway is my favorite player of all time. Big Ben plays like John Elway. I love Big Ben. Antonio Brown is more valuable this season. Antonio Brown, to me, should be in the MVP hunt. It should be down to him and Tom Brady. It really should be decided this coming week when they play. Antonio Brown is covering up, to me, for Big Ben. 24 TDs, 13 interceptions. Not the great, it's kind of typical Big Ben. But Big Ben has been shaky to me in some big spots. Antonio Brown, week after week after week, they can't stop this guy. To me, he's a potential MVP candidate of the entire league.
We've had a precedent in the NFL. What does Belichick do? He rolls coverage and takes away your star asset. Bill's never been able to take away a great quarterback. Great quarterbacks are great quarterbacks. Bill will take Antonio Brown out of the game. He'll just roll coverage, take him out.
Who's more important to the Steelers? Not Bill Belichick.
Big Ben.
Big Ben's more important.
Big Ben's more. Who's going to throw the ball to Antonio Brown the way Big Ben does? If you look at the passes that, I think seen 3 or more passes that was just dropped in the bucket down the sideline yesterday that most quarterbacks in this league probably can't do or make that throw. You take Antonio Brown away. You take Antonio Brown away. I still think Big Ben can make it happen with the weapons that he got around him. I know Antonio is a great player. I never take that away from him. The guy works extremely hard, but Big Ben is the guy that drives that.
He's a great
team. He's quarterback bias.
Well, no, he's right.
I see why you're saying that, but
quarterback bias.
I'm looking at the throws last night dropping
they were
right in the
perfect.
bucket, and I'm like,
they were perfect throws.
Dude, so good.
Yeah, a lot of quarterbacks can do that. What are you talking about? They can't catch the ball like that.
500 yards. He threw 500 yesterday.
He threw 66 times. Of course you're going to say, you got to say that. He's a quarterback, man. I'm going to agree with Whit here because as a guy who catches the ball, too, the way Antonio Brown is playing, I'm glad you brought that up because I didn't even think about it. He is an MVP. He should be in the talks now for what he's done this year and what he continues to do. I do believe you take him away, you win that game. And rest assured, when New England goes against them next week, Bill Belichick will roll coverage, all that stuff that's going to happen that I've seen. I've told you, I've said it before on your show. I've had my worst games going against Bill Belichick. The worst games of my career. One catch, 13 yards. One catch, 7 yards against San Francisco. One catch, 13 yards against New England Patriots one time. And that's because Bill Belichick, everywhere I went, there's 2 guys, 2-3 guys. Now, it's a little bit harder to do that against Antonio Brown because he's a receiver, but he's not going to catch more than 80. He won't have more than 80 yards that game.
If he puts up 120 and 2 TDs, the whole conversation will be different.
It'll be different
next week.
But by the way, remember this. Antonio Brown had the Facebook thing. Le'Veon Bell, little holdout. Big Ben's called out Tomlin. What's happened over the last 4 to 5 years is Big Ben's become, after he came into this league, he had baggage. He cleaned it up. His last 5 or 6 years, he's really been the host of this franchise. He's the guy.
I love Big Ben, but Antonio Brown is dancing on the sidelines every week. And you keep throwing. There's a lot of guys, or it's great Big Ben's throwing those balls, but there's a lot of receivers that can't work the sidelines with the authority and the consistency that Antonio Brown does. Yeah. And look, I think we're going to see it this week. Bill Belichick and them will try to take him away. I think he's unstoppable. I think we're looking at a Jerry Rice-type season where nobody could stop Jerry Rice. Jerry Rice is the only wide receiver that ever came close to winning the MVP. He came in second once to John Elway. If Antonio Brown does what I think he's going to do, he should be the MVP of the season this year.
Jerry Rice, real quick, though. Jerry Rice, Joe Montana, Steve Young, both Hall of Famers.
Right.
Rich Gannon left us, 10 years in the league, went to the Raiders with MVP when Jerry Rice came over there with him, was putting up stellar numbers. That shows you how good a receiver can be.
Yeah, Randy Moss used to do the same thing. He'd show up and records would fall. Minnesota, he went to New England, and next thing you know, Brady's throwing 50-some-odd touchdowns. Antonio Brown is in that lane. Again, I love Big Ben, but 24-13 versus a guy that might challenge Jerry Rice's receiving records.
Yeah, and to your credit, like, you're right. Antonio Brown has to get open, but he finds ways to get open. The way he created separation and then stacked the corner, like on those deep ball throws, most receivers might not be able to do that. So to your point, I can't be biased from the quarterback position. You got a point there, but, man, Big Ben is a lucky guy. He's lucky to have
Big Ben throws
lucky.
a deep ball as effortlessly as anybody I've seen. It feels like a curl pattern. Like those up the sideline balls, those are big, hard, 38-yard throws. Ben just tossed. That's where he and Elway.
Interception last night. He should have had a second one. Terrell Suggs dropped a clear interception. And again, I love Big Ben. He's the only guy with 3 500-yard games. Yeah, he's putting up a Hall of Fame.
Ben called a lot of plays at the line of scrimmage.
Welcome back. Mike Vick, Tony Gonzalez. Let's move to Cleveland, where Brett Hundley kept the Packers season alive, pulling out an overtime win against the Browns. Ugly, setting up Green Bay for an unlikely playoff push. Aaron Rodgers expected to return this week against Carolina. Meanwhile, the Cowboys got the win over the Giants. Winnable game this week against Oakland before getting Zeke back in Week 16. As of now, both these teams in the hunt in the very crowded NFC playoff picture. Whitlock, who's more legitimate threat, Packers, Cowboys?
The Packers have to play, I said this last week, they got to play the Minnesota Vikings. And I don't think they're winning that game. And so I think the Cowboys, with Zeke Elliott coming back, not this week, but I think the following week, are a more of a threat and more of a complete team than the Green Bay Packers. The Packers, and I know Aaron didn't play, but that game against the Browns did not instill confidence to me in the rest of that roster.
I could make an argument. There are 6 Dallas Cowboys that could be the Packers' second-best player after Aaron. Zach Martin, Ty Smith, Sean Lee, DeMarcus Lawrence, and David Irving. And Zeke. I mean, that's what I say. Like, when you watched Cleveland Green Bay, did you really see a big gap in talent? I didn't. Like, those look like fairly competitive teams.
Went overtime for a reason.
Yeah, I mean, it was so. I mean, I think I've been saying this for a few years. Green Bay has blown an opportunity with Aaron Rodgers to give him a consistently legitimate defense. You're never going to get another Aaron Rodgers. You went Favre to Aaron. You're not going to find the next Favre or Aaron. It's an average roster. Dallas has real players.
Dallas is a really good football team. I think once they get Zeke back, it'll really show, and it shows that how effective a running game can be. I just don't think Green Bay defense is strong enough. You see Clay Matthews make the play at the end of the game yesterday. They got corners and they got Ha Clinton-Dix who plays pretty good, but they have to find a way to change their identity in the last 4 games. Like you say, the Minnesota game will be big. It'll be a pivotal game. I don't think they will win. I don't think it's a good situation for Aaron Rodgers to come back right now. Honestly, I mean, if he can, come back. But right now, they're just not a good football team.
Yeah, well, in a perfect world, if he can come back and he's healthy, it scares me to go against Aaron Rodgers. I mean, look at what this guy's done over his whole career, calling his shots. Like last year when he said, we will go to the playoff and we will run the table, I still don't think that has been made a big enough deal of. Right. I mean, that's some Babe Ruth stuff. Like, he called his shot, and people are like, there's no way he's going to do it. And he did it, and he went to the NFC Championship game. all because of him. And you're right, the roster, the players around him aren't that, compared to other rosters, they're not as good. And it's clearly him. That's why I say he's the best quarterback of all time, at least my best quarterback of all time. So it's hard to pick against him, and I won't. I know Ezekiel Elliott, still young. When he gets back, that's a good weapon to have. But if Aaron Rodgers is on with the roster they have, they do have good receivers. I'll give them that. They got three really good receivers, and you cannot stop it when it gets going.
But, you know, here's the thing. The way to keep Aaron Rodgers off the field is pretty simple, is the Green Bay defense can't stop you. Think about the NFC defenses this year that could make the playoffs. Phillies, good. Rams, solid. Saints, shockingly good. Carolina, Vikings. The only team that we're like, okay, below average is Green Bay. I think they can play keep away from Aaron. I think Green Bay could go into games and he didn't get the ball.
I'll argue the other side of it just for the argument's sake. Tony's point, a guy like Aaron Rodgers can help change field position. And a lot of times when you're actually playing the game, you don't understand how important field position is. But when you sit back and watch it and see how it compromises play calling on the other side, and this is where the Packers, where he is able to elevate everyone else on the roster because he can make one play, dramatically change field position, and even if they punt after that, now you've put your defense in a spot where they can be more aggressive in the blitz game. And I know that, you know, Green Bay's not a heavy blitz team, but you can start defending people differently. So Aaron Rodgers is that rare talent that not only elevates offensive personnel, but also elevates defensive personnel. And, you know, Tony's right. As long as you got that guy, you have a shot.
I just think he'll have to do too much. If you look at the offensive line, he always has to move and you know, find ways to create lanes to throw the ball down the field. It's just going to be difficult for Aaron Rodgers. I just think they got to put some money into that defense in the offseason.
And a running game.
They got to change, and a running game. Like, you don't even know who the running back is. I mean, they played solid. But Aaron's just going to have to do too much, man. I just think it's too much pressure on him.
I do like the Cowboys D-line.
Don't want to see him get hurt again.
We're asking about Cowboys and Packers. The O-line's gotten all the press for Dallas over the last 4 to 5 years. That D-line, when DeMarcus Lawrence and Irving play, it's really good. I mean, they create a real pass rush without bringing extra people. Not many teams do. Welcome back, Tony Gonzalez, joined now by the founder of the Big Lead, Jason McIntyre. Let's move to North Carolina. Panthers held on for a huge win yesterday, snapping the Vikings' 8-game winning streak. Minnesota gave that thing away. Cam Newton broke off a 60-yarder late in the fourth. Great play here to set up the game-winning touchdown. The team only needed his heroics because they blew an 11-point lead in the final minutes. Here's Cam on hanging on for the W.
We got a very young team, young guys that we're dependent on. And, you know, it can become frustrating, especially in the heat of the moment. You know, for me, I've read this book a couple times, you know, being in those type of games and giving leads up or just bending but don't breaking. And, you know, that's just how it goes sometimes. You know, like I said, of course, we would love to, you know, go up by multiple touchdowns and just be just running the clock out there at the end. But, you know, that was a great team, a good team that we just played. And I won't be surprised if we see those guys again.
All right, Whitlock, you impressed with Cam in that win?
It's a hell of a game manager. He threw for 137 yards, completed a little over 50% of his passes.
Yeah.
I mean, it was tremendous what he did. Look, he had the big run to put the game away.
It was a great run.
Can't knock that. You can't take that away from him. I wasn't that impressed. I thought the Vikings gave the game away. I thought their wide receivers had a terrible game. Dropped two touchdown passes right at the end of the first half. Gave away an interception. Stephon Diggs did. Everything that could go wrong for the Vikings went wrong, and Cam Newton and the Carolina Panthers took advantage of it. More power to them.
It's amazing. I've never seen it. Cam won a home game against Case Keenum. Let's give him a parade. I mean, it's amazing that if Cam, like if you criticize Cam, I think a lot of it is Green Bay and Carolina are smaller cities. They have almost a collegiate feel. And so the media is very protective of the Packers and protective of Cam. But, you know, there's an old saying, what's the comedian Chris Rock used to say? When people say, hey, I take care of my kids, and Chris Rock would say, you're supposed to. You don't get credit for that. You won a home game against Case Keenum. You're Cam Newton. You're supposed to.
The Vikings should have won that game.
They should have.
You know what's weird is we're talking more about his post-game attire. Like, Whitlock, you saw this picture, right? This looks like something out of your wardrobe.
I like the hat. I'm the one guy that liked it.
To me, he looks like a bad guy dictator in a movie. Like, that's what we're talking about with Cam Newton. And like you said, he beat Case Keenum. I mean, guys, if you look at the stats this season, he's not in the top 15 for any category. Nothing. This is a guy who was the MVP of the league 2 years ago, potential face of the NFL, and he's fallen this far. I just don't know. I mean, it's almost like teams don't respect his passing ability at this point. He can't hit the 5-yard outs to McCaffrey. Like, he's struggling on the short passes. Tony, listen, I'm really down on Cam Newton right now. I don't know that he can turn it around this year.
I'm down on those hats. They're showing his hats while you're talking. I know you can't see it, but
I like hats. What's the matter with hats?
It seems like Cam is. I don't know what he's worried about, but it seems like he's worried more about his fashion statement after the game than really what's going on the field, or equally. And I really mean that too. I think some guys get caught up so much into their brand, that they're not really focusing on what's the most important, and that's being productive on the field. They're winning games though. And I give it to Cam. And if I'm Cam Newton, if you picture yourself being Cam Newton, and we talk all this stuff that we talk about him, we say, hey, he's not playing well, he's more worried about his wardrobe, whatever we want to say about him, but he's sitting back saying, well, I'm winning right now. So what do you got to say about that? And when the game's on the line, who makes the play? It's Cam Newton, and he's going to do his little Superman stuff. So as much as I can disagree with a lot of the things that he's doing and a lot of things that he's saying, and I don't like it, I would probably not want to be on playing with a guy like that. Unless we were winning. That's what it is. And really, that's the bottom line. It comes down to it. Are you still winning? And yes, they are. And you saw right there, he said, I won't be surprised if we see him again.
But another problem, Tony.
They're going to the playoffs.
You've seen this. Jared Goff has passed Cam Newton. Okay, Carson Wentz has passed Cam Newton. Deshaun Watson, you could argue in his 7-game sample, was like, wow, I need more of Deshaun Watson. It just feels like Cam's sliding down the charts in the quarterback position.
He is. I mean, no doubt about that, he is.
I actually felt, you know, when Gronk did that wrestling cheap shot, I almost felt like Gronk was kind of giving us a sense of, I like pro wrestling. I mean, it was really a sign. Got into a squabble with a pro wrestler that week. I'm thinking about my career. The last year with Cam, I have felt that he's not only on the back nine, he is moving toward a career, movies, fashion. I think he's interested in that stuff. By the way, well, whatever he is, but I think he is sending a message that the end is closer. You know, he's complained about the hits, being hurt. I think he's sending a message. He likes football. I'm not sure if he loves it.